Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has officially declared war on the federal government. Today, he signed an executive order stating that federal agents cannot use city property to stage or launch any actions against illegal immigrants, even while crime continues to spiral out of control. At this point, it really looks like Brandon Johnson is siding with criminals. He is not taking this help from the federal government to go after these criminals. So we've got Trump versus Brandon Johnson. Who do you think is? So if you listen to the mayor's entire speech, and I had the misfortune of listening to it, but I listened to it so you don't have to. He continues to accuse the federal government of going into this apartment complex. I have another video on that you can go back and watch, and says that they were putting brown people into one truck and they were putting black people into another van or truck or whatever he said. Of course they were. They were going into what they thought to be, or what they had identified according to their intelligence, an apartment complex that had Tren de Aragua operating out of that particular edifice. They don't know who's who. Then he talks about the woman who got shot. I mean, even the superintendent of police, Superintendent Snelling, even he is telling residents, he's telling citizens what not to do to federal agents. Take a listen at this.
Let me make this clear. Federal agents, ICE, HSI, are officers. They are agents of law enforcement. If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. And it's reasonable for them to use force based on those conditions. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. You are breaking the law when you do that. And you are putting yourself in danger. Following law enforcement agents around. The question is why? What do you plan on doing? It's also reasonable for them to believe that you're eventually going to do harm to them. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death. When you plow into a vehicle that contains law enforcement agents, you're using deadly force. And they can use deadly force in response to stop you.
Excellent job, Superintendent Snelling. You can hear just the huge difference between the way the mayor and the superintendent are presenting the facts. The mayor is saying, oh, these federal agents went into these apartment complexes and they're holding black people, at the tip of guns with masks on. They're shooting at civilians who are driving in cars. And then you hear the superintendent coming in with a very calm, with a very thoughtful, with a very circumspect approach. You cannot break the law just because you don't agree with what's going on at the federal government. There are processes that we have in place where you can redress your grievances, but you may not go out and break the law. As a matter of fact, he says that in I think the next couple of sentences.
We need to be clear about these laws. We cannot become a society where we just decide to take everything in our own hands and start to commit crimes against law enforcement. It is a crime. You may not like what they're doing. I can understand that there's a lot of emotions out there, but that does not mean that you get to commit a crime.
And that's why I really appreciate Superintendent Snelling and his presentation. while he's making room and saying, hey, I understand some of you are concerned about what's going on, he's drawing a hard line in the sand, and he's keeping everyone on law enforcement, or everyone in law enforcement, on the same side. Brandon Johnson couldn't care less. He's already on the record saying that law enforcement is a sickness. The only time he appreciates law enforcement is when they're protecting him and his family. But he's perfectly fine with allowing chaos to just spill over into the city. That's number one. But more importantly, number two, he's signing this executive order saying that the federal government can't use city property. I guess he's never heard of the Supremacy Clause, which would make sense since he's a 5th grade elementary school social studies teacher. But the city of Chicago cannot write any law that is going to supersede the federal government. That's number one. And number two, this is just an executive order. You just heard a moment ago that if federal agents go and stage in these areas, he's instructed CPD not to intervene. That's because they can't intervene. You cannot have Chicago Police Department intervening and or taking into custody federal agents. He's just such a, I've used this word before, he's such a dilettante.
What do you know about the timing of National Guard deployment, and what do you want Chicagoans and police to do in response?
Well, look, this president has waffled in multiple occasions, which I believe is evident that we have been so emphatic in our position and resolved in our presentation that this president has attempted to find many different maneuvers to try to circumvent the power that we are establishing. Here's what the police department will do. They're going to protect our fundamental right to be able to peacefully assemble. They know that. They're going to make sure that we are not coordinating absent a warrant and forcing our local law enforcement to dub as federal ICE agents. As far as the people of Chicago continue to stand firm, continue to document the rage that this administration is promulgating against the people of this city. And then I'm asking, of course, all of our elected officials, whether it's through executive order or through the passing of laws, to ensure that we maximize protection in this city.
He said two really interesting things right there. He said, make sure that the citizens of Chicago are documenting the rage, and that he wants to make sure that he's protecting the citizens of the city of Chicago. What about the rage of the citizens of the city of Chicago when they get their cars carjacked or stolen? What about the rage of business owners when their businesses are subject to a smash and grab? What about protecting citizens from crime and from being attacked by illegal immigrants? What about enforcing the law? You don't have to do anything outside of your mandate as mayor, Brandon Johnson. All you have to do is arrest people when you identify them that they are here illegally, and then hand them to the federal agency that is responsible for processing them from that point. But you've refused to do that. You've hidden behind this sanctuary city law, and that it was passed under Harold Washington. Harold Washington was the mayor of the city of Chicago over 40 years ago. What might have been applicable back then is not applicable today. You are such a failure. And I really, really hope that this whole experience is taken to the nth degree so you can be exposed as the spineless, feckless leader that you are. If you're still hanging out, do me a favor, go ahead, smash that subscribe button. If you like this video, drop me a comment, drop a like, drop me a hype, and we're going to continue to follow this story. This is breaking news today. I'm sure we're going to have some more information coming out later on this week. Hey, thanks for hanging out this far, and I'll catch you in the next one.